How are we doing, guys? And welcome back to the podcast. Join the team at Cube, Elephant and Castle today as we welcome Pele Zac as a guest. Super excited for this one. Really hope you enjoyed the episode. And by the way, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel below. Enjoy.
Welcome back to the podcast. I'm Tom.
I'm Joe.
And this is InsideAMind, a podcast brought to you by the I.A.M podcast team. And season 2 is focusing on men's mental health and well-being. It's an absolute pleasure to be joined by a special guest today. It's Pele. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me, guys. Awesome to be here. Excited to get into a good conversation and unpack some mental health bits.
We always start off each episode just explaining a bit about the viewers and listeners, a bit about you and a bit about your story.
I always think where to start with this. So Whistle Stop Tour, football was always a main kind of pillar of my life, the main anchor from when I was young. And that really helped me to navigate school, which was quite tough for me, which we can unpack as we get into the podcast. But through football, I kind of found really found my passion for sport. Moved to Barcelona at 15 to play football, which was, at the time, a lot of people said to me, like, that's quite a bold move, leaving your family. But for me, it was a natural next step. Moved to Barcelona, 3.5, 4 years in Spain, 2 knee operations. I know you're both familiar with injuries.
Yeah.
Moved home. And from there, I wasn't really sure, not even what I wanted to do, but who I was. Had quite a big identity crisis. And then got into PT over the next 1.5 years after quite a turbulent time in London. That was my newfound passion, really using my experience as an athlete and as someone who'd been coached for so many years to empower others. And then through my PT career, built my systems, my philosophy around how I help people, what I was really into, what I didn't want to do as much of in the fitness space. And that progressed to opening Rowbots in 2019. Since then, it's been quite a exciting but tough time. Navigating the business, building the business, and I got my own men's community as well, which we can unpack as we get into it.
For sure. Obviously, we'll touch on robots, we'll touch on the men's community. I just want to start off with the football side of things. Like, why did your love for football and sport start at that age? Because going to Barcelona at 15, that's a big move. That's not just like a moving school, that's a moving country, whole new environment, new language. How did you find that?
Yeah, it's weird at the time. You know, when you've got in your head an obvious move, like, you know what lights you up, but for someone else, it's quite foreign. And everyone was like to me, moving out of home at 15 is quite a big move. But school wasn't a vibe for me. Like, I had quite a tough time at school, expelled, suspended, didn't really get on with the schooling system in the UK. So when it came up, I was like, this is me. I'm locked in. Football's always been the thing that kept me disciplined and focused. Moved to Barcelona, and I think it was the realization that school finishes, go to college, go to uni, kind of delay making a real choice about what you want to do with your life. That was one route for me. Or I'm good at football, I love football, it's my passion, move there. The next step's not very certain, but it's going to give me a good foundation to then build upon with my career. And if that fails, I'll have that as an experience. And that was my kind of main driving force.
Absolutely, I love that. What was your sort of love for football at that age? Like, I know for myself, playing sport growing up, it was kind of everything. And that sort of like love for football, in my case, love for rugby and cricket, I kind of lost at that age. Did you find when you went over there and you went fully into it, going through the injuries you went through, you lost a love for it, or it sort of like increased the love for it moving to Spain?
Yeah, good question. In the UK, I was a good player. Moving to Barcelona, players from all over the world were there, and a lot of South Americans. And I realised, I don't know exact kind of intricate details of rugby, but the football world, a lot of it is technical, and you got bigger lads. I was quite boisterous for my age, and I was quite kind of robust as a player, centre back, but the skill wasn't really my bag compared to the boys in South America. So moving there was a big wake up call of like, okay, I'm going to have to make up kind of lost space here with regards to my work effort or my ability to turn up and put the work in, because these lads here are much more skilled than me. So I think I lost some of the love for it when I realised that now it's almost a job. There's money on my table, there's politics, and you see certain players making kind of progressions, and you're like, hold up, how's that working? You realise that if you know certain people, or no one cares how you are as a person, right? Like, you're a pawn on a pitch, essentially, and performance is what drives your progression. Whether you train hard, whether you're a good person or not, that's not relevant. And I think as a young age in London, I was always championed for being a hard worker, but over there, it was like, play well, or there's no or. It was quite like a rude awakening. And I think that just dented my passion for the sport a little bit, but it was also, that was the next chapter of my life. So I was like, suck it up and kind of like crack on.
Was it quite a lonely experience?
It was initially, because I spoke no Spanish. So I moved there. Quite a funny story. My dad took me in April for a week trial. was there with my dad, felt quite supported, came home, had about 4 months in London, then moved there permanently with my dad for 2 days, and then he came home. That's when I realised, like, fuck, now I'm here. Speak no Spanish. All the boys here from South America, they've got their own little clan. So the initial period was super lonely. And again, like, obviously you're a team and a family through the game, but when you're not playing on the pitch,
It's different.
it's different, exactly. Yeah.
What age were you when you went through your injury? Was that 18?
So I had 2 knee ops. First one was 18, second was 19.
How
Exact
was that?
same injury, other knee.
ACL, right?
No, meniscus.
Meniscus.
Yeah. How was it? It was hard, as you know. Injuries are tough, right? When I was that young, I had no idea what the process was for injuries. Like, I'd had injuries in London, but like minor things, but I didn't have a serious injury that required an operation and kind of proper in-depth rehab. And again, it was a chapter of like, fuck, you're kind of solo here. Parents are in London, you're 18, in the operating theatre. The next 9 months is quite uncertain. So it was tough to swallow, but also I was like, you got to roll with it, right? Like, it's not really my choice here. I'm getting paid to play. So you're a pawn, and to get you to a place where you can play again, you're having an op, whether you like it or not.
I think when people think of injuries, just in my opinion, they think of the physical side. They don't think of the mental side. And what I found really hard, for those of you listening who don't know, I had ankle surgery, so I dislocated my ankle. So I have a plate in my ankle, which I was out for 6 months with when playing rugby when I was 20. When I was 19, I dislocated my shoulder. So I got 50 stitches and 6 bolts in my shoulder.
Wow.
But people don't seem to talk about the mental side of it, or that's not really what's seen when you're going into your physio sessions and you're coming back from it and you're feeling good and you're like, this is kind of my livelihood. If I want to make it as a professional athlete, or if I am a professional athlete, if you don't pay, you don't get paid. And that sort of like mindset is, I found, screwed with me massively. And I know you've gone through something similar with your neck and retiring from rugby as well. Is just that whole mental preparation side of, you know, you've got 9 months ahead of you where you're going to watch everyone progress and you're going to feel like you're regressing massively, and you're going to miss those opportunities. When you come back, you're going to have to earn them all again. I feel like that's not really spoke about as much, maybe a bit more at the moment, but that's a side which I found incredibly hard. Did you find that hard, especially when you did it the second time? Because that second one for me, I was like, I can't do this. I can't go through this again. How did you find that?
Firstly, was it a re-injury of the same injury when you had yours, or was it a different injury?
So for my ankle one, shoulder was completely out of the blue. Ankle one, I'd rolled my ankle a lot, and then it was obviously loose. And then I've been playing through those sprains, and I was like, I can't not play. I had the Scotland 20s trials coming up, and I was like, damn, I need to play. I'll just push through it. And then I just played a game, and it went snap, completely went. Whole deltoid went, cartilage went, dislocated it. And it was just like an awful kind of feeling what's happened. So that was a reoccurring one, which in the back of my head, probably, if I could go back and do it again, would just rest on those on the sprains.
You're like, nah, coach, I'm off today. Yeah.
But when you're in the middle of it, you're trying to fight for arguably your job, right? You're trying to fight for what you've dreamt about since you were a kid. And that whole mental side really fucked me up, like, pardon my language, but really screwed with me. Screwed my relationship, screwed with, you know, how I viewed sport as a whole. And that's why I just was curious on your front, you know, looking back at it now, did you find that it screwed with you massively? But coming on, 7, 8 years, 10 years from, what lessons did you take from that, which you're now arguably could be more resilient from it?
Excuse me. Great question, man. At the time, it all happened so quickly. Again, it was like, you're injured, you're having an operation, this is the rehab process, it's well looked after, and you're essentially spoon fed. But having time to really sit on it once you've had the operation and you're in that rehab phase and you're watching your teammates excel, and also you're reminded daily that, like, you can't do what you love. And for me at that time in my life, what I was there to do felt quite like purposeless. Like, what am I doing? Obviously, rehab in that initial phase was super slow. So it's like you're turning up to the rehab clinic, doing the work, seeing no progression, not really sure of what's going to happen, not really sure if you might get to a certain stage and you're good to play. But then, like you said, someone's filled your spot, or you re-injure yourself. And the mental side of it for me was more challenging for the first one because it was unknown. The second one, I was like, been here before. And I really like put my attention and my efforts into learning about mindset and really realizing like there's a lot of negative thoughts on one shoulder. What can I do to try and counteract that with some more positive thoughts? And that's when I started to look into how you can not control your thoughts, but have some power over how you think, but more importantly, which thoughts you give volume to.
I'm
So
really sorry. Go on.
No,
Carry
go on.
on. No, I was curious as to where you got that from, because being on your own at such a young age,
Yeah.
was that coached in you from someone else, or did you just sort of learn on the go?
We had a sports psychotherapist, but it was quite like loose. It was more about like performing in front of people and essentially not attaching your value to being a good or bad player on the pitch. But there was no talk really around mindset, as in it wasn't as structured. The sessions weren't structured. They were more like, what are you suffering with? And a lot of the boys there found it hard to be in front of a lot of people. I think just like stumbling across YouTube videos, to be honest, way back when I had so much free time, like I was either having rehab 2-3 hours a day or chilling. So I thought, let me put my energy units into something. And I think it just lit me up. And that was like finding a new passion alongside football, which now is obviously it's a much bigger passion of mine. And that's how I started. And then from there, just like down the rabbit hole, books, podcasts, conversations, and kind of like built out my my passion for it.
I love that.
The willing to learn as well.
Totally, yeah. And I've always been someone who loves to learn when I'm into it. But at school, I was like, see my language, fuck this, that's not my vibe. But when I'm in something, like now I'd love to go to uni because I'm really passionate about certain things. Whereas at school, I was like,
You
not
didn't really
my
know.
thing.
I think that's one of the hardest things, is like finding your purpose in a way. And I actually I saw a TikTok post, which is convenient, the other day, where it was just saying, if you don't know what you want to pursue yourself. And I thought that was like a really powerful statement, because I think there's a lot of people, especially my age, who don't know what they want to do. And I feel like I was just there. I remember having the chat with you like a year and a half ago, being like, I don't have a clue what I want to do, but I know I want to do something. And then that like pursuit of yourself, pursuing yourself in like health and wellness, relationships, a path seems to form from there. And I actually think it's quite a powerful thing once you put yourself out there to see where you actually can go down the line.
And I think to challenge that as well, I think it's like, even if you do have a deep passion, still pursue yourself along the side. Like it's so easy, I think, to have a career path that you love. Say you work, I'm not against office jobs. Say you work an office job and you're super passionate about it. You love helping your clients in that respect, but you don't focus on yourself, whether it's a passion, side project, side hustle, health, fitness, relationships. Fast forward like 10 years, you might be like, fuck this career, I'm done with this now, I want to move, but not really have anything else in your life. I think it's so easy to get sucked into putting all your eggs in one basket, whether it is your career or your financial freedom goal or whatever it might be, rather than having different strands of your personality that you really like lean into and kind of give effort to.
It's a great point you make. I think taking you back to the time where you realised that football was over for you and you had nothing really to fall back onto in terms of a career because school wasn't for you. What was that like?
Post 2 operations,
Just
you mean?
having the rug pulled from your feet, being like, football is now over for me. Because I think the same for me and you. I think I would have loved nothing more than to pursue a career in rugby.
Yeah, of course.
And the day that I realised it wasn't going to be for me, it was quite hard because, again, like you, school didn't agree with me. I wasn't one for enjoying going to school at all. I enjoyed the social side of it, but I hated the exams. I couldn't cope with exams at all. So for me, I felt purposeless. And for me, it was quite hard to then find that elsewhere because I put all my eggs in that one basket. I'm just curious, as the day that you found out that football was going to be no longer, what happened then?
It's almost like going back in my head now, 10 years. I'd always identified as a footballer. Also, my name, Pele, right? So whether I played or not, first question is, oh my God, you play football? I get it now.
Named
Still, every
after.
time, I meet someone. And that's not the case, but like my whole identity in life was Pele's a footballer. So you come home, all your mates and family and friends are like, how's football? Who you signed to? You get used to that being but also who you are in everyone else's eyes.
Yes, exactly.
So you live into that existence because it's like, well, they think I'm a footballer. I do play football. That's my main passion. You become that person, as you guys will both know from rugby. So at the end, I think I just realised that I have to do some thinking about who I want to be. And football, obviously it was choice, but I fell into it and it became me pretty quick without thought. Whereas post-football, I had a year and a half in London of just like really finding my feet. Coming back to the UK, all my friends were big into the drug scene, which was naturally what I fell into. And I think, as I mentioned to you previous to this chat, like a lot of people often talk about that as a negative time of their life. But for me, it was a really positive time. Like I had a great time. Touch wood, never had any bad experiences. Some of my best friends are from that time in my life, even though now obviously we're both very different. And I kind of sat in that, like, this is a necessary part of my growth. Like, I don't know what the fuck I want to do right now. I'm with good people, having good time, still pursuing mindset on the side and like my training, and then just let things unravel as they did. But I didn't try and put too much control over it all.
I love that.
I feel like when I spoke to Johnny Wilkinson, the ex-rugby player, I asked him, sorry, I just wanted to say, I don't want to interrupt you before, about the identity side of things. Because I spoke to him for 10 minutes after a podcast filming of one of our clients. And I was like, have you found it hard post-rugby? Because like, you say the word Johnny Wilkinson, you think Rugby World Cup winner, you think like winning drop goal, amazing rugby player, arguably England's best 10 ever. Does anyone see like Johnny Wilkinson, who loves spirituality, who loves, you know, breath work, and, you know, loves playing basketball on his own, and little things like that? I was like, how have you found that post rugby with the identity side? And his advice was, you can't be half in with it. He was like, if I leave half of my rugby jersey on for myself personally, he was like, people will just keep associating me with it. He was like, what he said he learned was he just had to strip it all off and almost restart. And he said that was a horrible first 1 or 2 years post-retirement. You know, he still loves rugby, but people are starting to see him now less as Johnny Wilkinson, the rugby player, and more as Johnny,
Person.
yeah, the guy from Surrey. And he was just like, it's one of the hardest things he's had to do. And that also gave me a lot of peace of mind, because I struggle with that identity piece as well, of being like family, friends. The first question everyone would ask is like, how's rugby going? Or how's this going? How's this sport going? And now I'm starting to find like the minute I stripped it all away, and it wasn't like not talk about it, but just like kind of put that as a past chapter. The first questions people are starting to ask now are, how's the podcast going? Or, you know, how's the business going? Or how's Meg? Or whatever it is, which is quite a nice change to see. But it was also quite reassuring to know that someone of his magnitude and what he's achieved has also gone through that identity crisis and is still, you know, making his way through it and learning. There's a lot of peace of mind for me in that.
Yeah, I would guess it's the same all the way to the top. Like you say, someone of that caliber, you know, feeling that kind of emotion. And someone actually asked me last week a piece of advice for someone in a similar position. I said, like, destroy and rebuild. Like, be willing to not destroy, as in that was a negative part of me, but like, you're more than that. And that could be a chapter. It could be a year, 5 years, 10 years, or 50 years. But like, we can go through iterations of ourselves, and that can always be something that's taught us lessons. And essentially, for me, that's made a lot of the building blocks that have built out who I am today are from my sporting background. I'm sure similar to you guys, and that's a very positive thing.
Yeah.
But so many guys that I chat to who have had turbulent sporting careers have ended through due to injury, still attach themselves to that. And it's like, you need to not move on, but accept that like that's no longer you.
Yeah.
And I think some dads then, you know, live through their kids' feet on the pitch, and like you become the dad that's like,
absolutely.
and you can see that. And I had players on my team who had dads like that, and I was like, bro, your football life is done. Let your kid play football if he wants to, but if he doesn't, don't try and live through his feet. And it must be a tough upbringing when you feel like you're trying to live for the goal that your parent never hit. You know, so I think that's, to your point, super powerful.
Completely agree.
Really good point you make, actually. I want to pick your brain. Are the football teams, clubs, doing enough to help young people that don't make it as a career in football? Because the 0.1% of young children who end up being a professional footballer won't make it. Like 0.1%, but it's such a small percentage of people, from young boys and girls, who will go on to make and be the next Ronaldo or Messi.
Christian said that as well.
Christian Scale said this in one of the first episodes we did, and he mentioned how the aftercare of clubs. I wanted to get your view on what you think the clubs should do better, or if they are doing enough to help young boys, because the suicide rates in football clubs of young men, in particular young boys, who are cut from Man City, Chelsea, Spurs at the age of 11 or 12, whose their entire lives have been football, have got nothing to fall back on, because a bit like you with school, it was football or nothing. You had to put all your eggs in one basket. Do you think clubs are doing enough to help young boys and girls with that?
Really good question. I couldn't comment on how things are now. And when I was in the UK at Tottenham for a bit, I was young. In Spain, you were champion purely on your performance. So the best players in the team, no word of a lie, they eat first. Like, you're front of the queue, and if you're not front of the queue and you walk to front of the queue, no one's saying shit.
Madness.
Which straight away like reaffirms to everyone, this person's better than you. Like, you might be a better player on the pitch if we got top trumps out, but you're a human. And when you're cut from a team, if you're not given support to reintegrate into the world, then part of your identity is left within that place. And I think you have to be given support and building blocks and a supportive community and environment to thrive outside of a sport, or at least go through some sort of psychological support to understand that you have more to add to the world than this player that was cut because you weren't good enough or was cut due to injury. So in Spain, it was quite toxic. Like, I was around players that now are playing in different professional teams, not super high level, but playing around the world. And they still get championed based on their performance 10 years ago in that club. And I think people need to leave those teams and those clubs and associations with some support to reintegrate into the world, because, like you say, identity is a huge part of what we live by. And if it's not secure, then negative things happen. So in the UK, I'm not sure, but in Spain, it wasn't positive at all.
Really? Yeah.
I think more needs to be done, yeah.
I would like to touch on Rowbots, but the reason why is I'd be curious to see, like, being an entrepreneur now, I see a lot of like high level athletes, people that have played like high level football, high level rugby, seem to have a massive tolerance for the stress levels that come with, you know, that entrepreneur sort of like mindset of things. Have you found that co-founding Rowbots? Have you found that your lessons from sport, like sort of that resiliency side, you know, that determination, that grit side at a young age, has allowed you to manage it easier than you would have done, say, if you didn't have that path?
I think a lot of my personality traits come from sport, and especially from I was a hard worker, but I was never the best player on the pitch, but I was always a first team player purely because I put more work in, because I was like, if I want to close the gap between these players that are much more highly skilled than me, I've got to put more work in than them. And that's been my philosophy since then. And something I unpacked with my therapist years ago was like, life's not all about performance. Like, you can have more than just how you perform, whether it's financially, your status, your ego, whatever the things are. Like, there's more to it than that. My relationship with work in the past definitely wasn't healthy, because my tolerance to it was super high, which meant that 16, 18-hour days when it had to be done were like, cool, tick a box. That's not healthy. That becomes normal. So I think, to answer your question, definitely yes, it helped me to build a tolerance to hard work, but not in a healthy way. And also because a sporting career, you train to perform on a pitch. Entrepreneurship, everything's in one mixing pot. Like, you're always training, but you're always performing. There's no end point. There's no like train, recover, perform, and then recover again. It's like go. And the more you get, the more you want sometimes. So I think it has, but initially in my career, or at least building Rowbots, it wasn't a healthy relationship, which if I could go back and change, I probably wouldn't. But I wouldn't recommend someone else to attack it the same way that I did.
I'd be curious to see, what's the biggest moment of doubt you've had when starting Rowbots?
Ooh. Good question. There's never been a moment of doubt, and that's the honest answer, because we've got a fucking powerful team, and the vision, the passion is just like through the roof.
Team looks sick.
However, COVID was hard. I think the fact that COVID was like a staggered process, right? Like, it was 3 weeks, and then it was a month, and then it was 6, and then it was a year. It wasn't like you got 3 years now, or whatever it was. So it was quite like it was a reactive period, right? A lot of innovation, iteration on the spot. So it wasn't as daunting as knowing we're going to be closed for a year. But the biggest moment of doubt, if there was one, would have been probably during COVID. Are we going to be allowed to function as a Group X facility like we used to? Which was completely out of our hands, which is why it was a bit of doubt there. Whereas since we've reopened since then, it's been hard always, but always growing.
Love that. For those that don't know, watching and listening, explain a little bit about what you guys do and how your like business operates. And...
Yeah. So Rowbots, sorry, I say it like everyone knows, but obviously it's in my head, right? Rowbots is a Group X facility. So split concept, half the room is rowing. We've got water rowers, which are very user-friendly, intuitive. And then half the room is on the floor, dumbbells, kettlebells, D-balls. Cool. So the floor is very structured around strength, stability, full body strength. And the rowing obviously is more endurance focused. Some of those are aerobic, so like a longer effort, some more anaerobic, short sprints. But the main kind of pillar of Rowbots and the USP is that we build our classes around psychological theme. So rather than being full body, the class is called Reset, which is about failure, for example. And that's one of our themes. The programming, in physical terms, is programmed towards forcing failure, stepping back, resetting, and going again. So across the week, we have planned and kind of orchestrated and created a menu that we think benefits you from Monday through Sunday on repeat. And that's progressed and structured to ensure that you're developing yourself as a person up here between your ears in the machine room, which is our gym, that carries over to the person that you are outside the machine room in the real world.
That's awesome.
Mate, I love that.
Got to come down whenever you're ready.
Absolutely.
That's for everyone as well. That case
totally.
Absolutely.
100%. Yes, we've got from beginner to advanced. Like, we've got, I mean, one of our co-founders, Sam, his mum used to come. She's don't want to say her age, I'm not sure, but she's a lot older than me. And we've got athletes who are 20, 25 who come in. Like, we've obviously got a spectrum of weights, and the coaching is very meticulous. Like, we ensure that our coaches are of a certain caliber, both in terms of mindset and also physical programming, to ensure that whether you are a beginner or advanced, you're well challenged as needed in a Group X environment.
I love that.
Some of you will know we've done a couple posts now. Joe and I did a High Rocks for the first time in
Yeah,
Switzerland.
boy.
Still recovering.
And Pele was in Switzerland as well, in St. Gallen, one of the weirdest places I've ever been, as we talked about off camera, the ghost town.
Literally.
But we underestimated how hard the row would be. I just wanted to put it out there. We were planning before, and we were like, okay, so we'll probably fly through the sled push, we'll fly through the row, we'll fly through the farmers' carries. We got to the row, and we were just absolutely cooked.
Mate, it's hard. What was your
It's
tactics?
really
How
hard.
did you split up the 1,000 meters?
250, 250, 250, 250 is what we did. I don't know if that's the right thing to do.
He made me start everything, by the way. He was like,
Oh, really?
you can start, and I'll bring up the run through. Like, yeah, cheers, Tom. Thanks, mate. Yeah, I'll start everything.
Cheers, bro. It's
shall I?
that
Yeah.
balance of like either you go from the run into the station or from a station into the run. I think they're both equally, depending on like what station, they're both equally daunting. But which was the easiest station apart from the sled push that you mentioned before?
For me, lunges. I was surprised how
You were
easy the lunges.
flying on the lunges.
Lunges, I felt okay. Hardest, we spoke off air, but the hardest for me was the farmers' carries. My heart went through the roof on those ones. I thought, we spoke beforehand and we said,
We thought we'd do it in
Joe,
like
you
50
just do
seconds.
you just do the whole thing. Like, Joe, you do the whole thing because you'll be good at that.
We tried splitting it up like 70-30, 70-30, like I'll do 70, Joe will do 30, and then I'll do 30, Joe will do 70, and then we'll go 50-50 on some. And on the farms cards, we were just like, yeah, Joe, just blitz it, like just smash it, and then I'll start with the what's after that, the lunges at 7 or something. I'll start with them and blitz those.
Mate, any plan that you have in High Rocks, like
Out the window.
it's sweet
Doesn't
until
work.
you
Out
hit
the
the
window,
road, go,
5 minutes.
and then it's like just fucking hold on, like do what you
Do
can.
what you can. Yeah, that's the thing. I think for the next one we do, I think it would be just, if you're struggling, say, and then the person can take over. If you're struggling, just dig deep.
Absolutely.
Do you train a lot together?
No.
No,
Not at all,
fair.
not once.
Do more of that.
Again, words to the wise, if you are going to do doubles, 100% train with the person you're with, because you don't know what their strengths will lie until the actual event itself.
Hugely.
So we'll do a
Absolutely.
couple of sims for the next one.
But that I saw what I just wanted to say about the row is just how like it seems like quite an easy thing, but it's like generally it's not, and that's why I was curious to see like how come you made it based around rowing. Did you like experience the same thing where you were like, shit, this is hard, like,
Yeah.
and then build it around that?
So essentially, we saw a big gap in the market, right? There still is now, and it's great. You know, mind body, that means different things depending who you chat to, but mind body is phenomenal, attaching power and value to those two things in conjunction with each other. When we opened Rowbots and when we were building the idea and the philosophies around it and the structure, there wasn't anything that challenged you in terms of mental conditioning, like more than just passively sit and breathe. How can we challenge your mind to be better tomorrow than you are today? Rowing's hard. The team had some experience in their own different areas of life. I had experience from my rehab, so I was like, for me, this is phenomenal. Combining rowing with mindset, two things that I've utilized and have helped me in my journey as an athlete. And then, again, we did a lot of market research, and like there were a few classes that use rowing, but not in the way that we thought they could be used or utilized. Beginner to advanced, there's so many different ways we can tap into progressing a rowing machine. Like depending on your technique, the time you have available, you can get a banging workout in a short period of time. You can be on there for sprints, for long efforts. True. So it's a full body bit of kit. It's low impact, so a lot of runners come to Rowbots or people who've gone to other facilities that are more impact based.
Good point, yeah.
And they can come in, get a huge aerobic workout, full body strength. Like, get on a rower for 2 minutes, let alone for half an hour. You build not only a strong engine, but a robust body. You move well. So it was a combination of all of those things. And some classes now are just strength to ensure that we've got different options, but majority are rowing and strength.
Do you find a lot of people coming through your doors are coming through due to the mental side of things, looking for that sort of like outlet of things where they're looking for a place where they can go not just for their physical health, but also for their mental health? And then the fact you've almost done it in a triangle, right, where you prioritized all areas, I think that's so like unique, and in my opinion, that's where everything should be going. Because I gym at March On purely at the moment, probably 70-30, but 70 for the mental side of things. The accountability side takes away all the structure of the workouts, but also, being around like-minded people who are also training for that front. I think places like Rowbots and where I train March On are like the complete future of that, and I think you're in at a perfect time, and I love that you prioritize that side. because you go to a David Lloyd and it's amazing. Like, facilities are great, but you train on your own, you put your headphones in, for example, and you focus on the physical. When I'm in a place of like-minded people, or there's a step structure, as you've said, and each thing is programmed to sort of benefit your mental side as well, I feel like a different person doing things like that. And that's one of the biggest things I wish I brought into my life earlier, are those sort of group sessions. Because I think at the end of the day, people are just desperate for a community and being around like-minded people. I was just wondering if you find that a lot when people come in, they say that to you, like, the people I'm with is the best part of it.
Matt, I couldn't agree more. Super powerful what you've just said there. Obviously, I know Ollie well. Marchand's a phenomenal facility, and they do things the right way as well with regards to their physical setup. And like, product, or value rather, is way more than just tangible product, right? Like, we can have the most sexy studio. You can walk in, you can spend infinite amount of cash in a studio or a gym facility, but if the value doesn't go further than tangible product, what are you even doing? Like, the community, the way that you're welcomed. If you're welcomed in the front of house, don't know your name, and you're a regular on a Monday morning, like, how is that even rolling? But it does in a lot of places. And when we opened like it was our home. Myself, Sam, Greg, and our GM and another head coach were there 6-7 days a week, chatting to every member that we could. And people started to say, like, you do things differently here. And we'd done a lot of research, but we hadn't been to a lot of classes from direct competitors, purely because we didn't want to get our ideas tainted by what they're currently doing. We started to explore them more, and we realized that when you walk into these places, you're literally a number. You come in,
you're right,
here's your towel, that's your station, you do a class, you shower, see you later. You might not even get a see you later if their head's down making a shake or whatever. So we were like, nah, that's not how we're going to roll it. We're going to create an environment where you come in, you're welcomed, you have a chat in front of house. People want to be in an environment where, like, to your point, they can thrive with each other. And community is the bloodline, has been since day one, and will always be the bloodline of Rowbots, because without that, you've just got a tangible product that someone can go and get anywhere else. So, absolutely. And it's not free because it takes time to build, and the personnel are important, but it costs nothing.
Do you think your love of that community and that safe space you create for your members has come from being on your own a lot and not feeling like you belonged in a certain space?
I think it's come twofold: from being in a team most of my life and knowing the value, and having it pulled away from me and being like, fuck, I'm quite lost here. Yeah, for sure. Definitely.
You're running some men's health events, men's mental health events, and bits you're doing. I know you're a big advocate for all these things. I was just wondering if you'd touch on that front, what events there is coming up or you're attending, and talk a bit more on that.
Yeah, so over the last 11 years of PTing, I've coached everyone, right? Like, you guys know how it is when you start, you coach whoever comes into the studio, you're given a client, and you realize pretty quick, I vibe with these kind of people, whether it's male, female, older, younger, sport, not sport, whatever. You start to realize and create common themes between people that you really can help and want to help, and others that you
absolutely
would pass on to someone else. And I've really lent into coaching men the last 2 years properly, and realized that I can obviously relate to being a man much more than I can to a woman. I can help a woman get fitter and stronger, but my passion lies of getting men who are in a place that I used to be. So, like, I spent a lot of time optimizing all areas of health, being really focus of my learning and development around health, fitness, nutrition, but at the expense of my mental health, and not putting enough time into valuing connection, physical interaction, and being in those environments. A lot of it was like solo work. I didn't really have a space to express that side of myself. So creating exactly what I wish I had when I was 25 is precisely what I'm doing now. And it's been a beautiful journey so far.
Was there a moment where you were like, this is, your next kind of calling in a way, and that next part, where you like have a conversation with someone, or is it just progressive over time? You were like, I'm seeing more people, as you said before, this could be something where I focus more on coaching only men, because with us on season 1, we did talking to anyone about anything around mental health and well-being. And for season 2, we were like, we're going to go purely, men's mental health and well-being, just because of the relatable side. Like, I remember we were having conversations and I kept agreeing that I could relate, but then it would be something I've never gone through before, or something I felt like I couldn't give my 2 cents on because I'd never experienced. That side of like the men's mental health, the men's health thing, was there like a defining moment for you where you were like, oh yeah, like this is kind of my next area I'm going to push into?
I think, to be honest, it was a lot of those moments of being in environments where I've been in many different communities that are health and wellness oriented, whether they're male only, mixed, boutique fitness, wellness retreats. And I started to, I'm an observer, like I learn by observing.
Yeah.
and emulating things in my own way and adding my own flavor or flair, as it were. And just seeing that a lot of communities were very, excuse me, one-dimensional, like a running community, a cycling community, a men's group that's more kind of vulnerability focused, a walking group, breathwork group. These things are all phenomenal. But I was like, I want a place where it can all happen. And I can bring in, like, it's not the Pele show. I can bring in facilitators like Jamie, who you guys know.
Yeah.
Came to one of my men's events, led a phenomenal breathwork session, and not give these people space because they've all got phenomenal followings and communities and businesses already, but like loop in experts that I vibe with, having guys there that want to learn and feel empowered by these different elements of wellness and being a facilitator for that space. So just being in different environments and realizing there's a gap for this, and like it's the classic kind of cliche, like if you can't find it, create it. And that's kind of the mission that I'm on now, is to create a space that I wish I had when I was doing everything, but in an unstructured manner, not knowing who the voices of reason were, not knowing which guys I wanted to be around. And I can confidently welcome any man into this space and be like, you will leave here better than when you entered. You'll be around good people. And it's incredible when it's just men, the ego just drops. Whether it's a sweaty workout or it's a recovery session or a talk around mindset, men are super open when you give them a platform to be and you give them options to consider. Bro, it's cool. You can be yourself here. It takes time to open up, but then they leave and be like, I need more of this. And the biggest feedback's been the events are great, but like, I want something more regular. I don't want to wait a quarter.
Best
I want to have
compliment you can get.
Yeah. And I was like, shit,
awesome.
good problem to have. But just seeing men from all ages come in and leave and build connections with other guys for me has been super like purpose driven and fulfilling.
So hosting these events, has there been a certain moment that's really stuck with you? Something that is emotional or like a profound moment that you've been like, wow, you know, that's really hit me.
Just getting some of the messages after, like, I'm sure everyone, you know, gets messages depending on your career path and who you're helping that can really touch you. But like certain guys that talk about how they've been treated in relationships with men or with women or in their family, and being like, I didn't know these spaces existed. I think a lot of men get used to being like, we're good at suffering, right? Like you wake up and you're like, today's gonna be fucking hard, but it's normal to me. So like, today's gonna be hard, tomorrow's gonna be hard, next week's gonna be tough, it's gonna be a hard year, fucking hell, it's gonna be a hard whatever. Rather than being like, no, there must be more. And seeing guys leave the events and feeling empowered to then go and make certain choices in their life with career, relationships, seeing them open up over the course of events. They walk in hunched over, head down, they walk out loud and proud, chatting to guys. I'm like,
That's awesome.
that's what it's all about. Because I know how it feels to be the guy who's like, not do I belong here, but what's my purpose? Who am I? So it's really kind of fulfilling to feel that.
I want to take you back to that time where you spoke about how you felt purposeless and how you had no sort of drive or you don't know what the next step was for you for. How bad did it get for you when you were in that moment? Because you mentioned earlier how you've had therapy and all that kind of stuff. Just how, take me back to, if you don't mind, that time of your life where you just didn't know where the next step would be and how bad did it get?
Pretty bad, man, to be honest. Like, I wouldn't say that. I'm very careful to talk about certain things in this space, but I had times when I was like, it'd be a lot easier not to be here. Like, and it wasn't a thought that I could confidently say on these days at this time I was going to do this, but for a good 18 months, every day was just waking up and being like, I'd rather not wake up today. And that's when drugs became a big part of my life. And because there was such a positive outlet and I was around good people and you combine good music with good friends and drugs, in my experience, that part of my life was great. Then I'd wake up the next day and I'd need to find some sort of release again. And that's when I realized, like, after Chase, certain point, like, no, mate, this is not you. Because one day you'll wake up with a big come down and you'll make a bad choice. And then being around the wrong people, realizing, like, if I'm not the architect of my own environment, things that you guys find normal are now things that I find normal. But those aren't my values. That's not how I was brought up. That's not the things that really light me up. So if I don't make a change, this is going to go one way and it's not up. And that was the point when I really realized, like, get to the gym. And I just say to people at the gym, yo, I'm Pele, like, what are you training? And suddenly you realize that people are pretty welcoming and open. This was when I was like 21. Then I'm like, cool, I've got 4 mates that go to the gym rather than 4 mates that go to Fabric 3 nights a week. And then my whole ethos started to change around environment and, like, I'm going to pick myself up and extract myself from A and put myself in B. So it was a tough time. And I really can relate to guys that are like, there's no way out. I'm just like, trust me, there's more. And I've really tapped into my spiritual side the last couple of years. And that's been a huge awakening for me, really, to realize like one day we're all dust, finito. And everyone says, you know, life's short, YOLO, whatever. But it's like, if you don't have a purpose right now, that's cool. Like you said, lean into yourself, discover who you want to be around, discover who you are rather, and choose who you want to be around, and trust that in time, things will improve. And I really like, for me, it's a big passion and driving force behind these events, is helping men to realize that like there is more. Whether that's getting in better shape or improving up here between your ears, there's always more.
Where do you see these events going? What's your big goal in mind?
Ooh, big, man, big. I really see in-person activations as not the next big thing. It's always been a big thing from the day that, you know, anything was created on this planet. But community has driven every big decision in my personal experience of life, for good or bad. So creating a space that men can come and feel themselves and connect with other guys, for me, like that is the next chapter in the wellness space for men to thrive. Absolutely. Mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally, financially. And I always think, not always, often, should I do mixed events? Because I've done quite a few in the past with my girlfriend Ria and at Rowbots. But I know that I need a space to be around good men. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, if all goes to shit, I'm creating something that I really enjoy and I can enjoy it myself. Mm. And hopefully everyone else around me as well has a great time. So I think the challenge would be like monetizing it. I'm very conscious not to just put it behind a paywall, because it's a touchy thing. Yeah. But it's got to work financially. Mm. So I want to work with I'm working already some really cool brands, but more brands that I'm in line with that the guys can benefit from as well, and kind of build it out that way. That's rather than just, you know, increasing the price from X to Y and then it goes as high as it needs to go. That's not really my vibe.
Amazing, man. I'd love to end it on this last question we ask all our guests. If you can give one piece of advice for the listeners and viewers out there to take back into their day-to-day lives, what piece of advice would that be?
Should have prepped this one. I think I would say, if it was one, I'd say focus on private victories over public victories. I think the person you are behind closed doors is an incredibly empowering person to be when you're doing the right things. And it's so easy for us to cheat ourselves when no one's watching, when the lights are off, as it were. And it's hard to do the small things when no one's watching. But if that becomes your key philosophy and cornerstone of who you are as a person, everything else will build off that and come as a byproduct, rather than chasing, whether it's the financial goal, the status, the this, to that, at the expense of your mental health behind closed doors. That's not a very good place to be. So private victories over everything.
Powerful. Awesome, man. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me, guys. That was awesome.